Good morrow.
Hello, good evening, or
Good
good
morrow
morning,
and
I
good
should say.
evening. Yeah, good morrow and good evening. I don't know what the old English word for evening, good morrow, but I don't know what it is for morning, but I don't know what it is for good evening, the old English for good evening. I don't know if there's a equivalent of
Maybe
good morrow. Yeah,
good even or something like that. Good,
good
good, good even.
evening.
Oh,
Yes, and
is your cat
sorry.
joining
Yeah,
the?
a member of the animal realm will be joining us for at least
Very good. That's
some of our
wonderful.
Dharma talk today, so she can listen to the Dharma. She has listened for many all her life. She has, in one way or another.
That's great. She's a lucky cat.
He is. He is. I feel like
Well, the
I probably have had such births in the past where I was an animal of somebody that was a Buddhist and heard the teachings and or even an
yeah.
Amida, Amida Dharma follower, type of thing.
Well, there's a passage in the larger sutra, or one of the translations of it, and quoted by Shinran Shonin. Let me see if I can find that exact passage. It's really beautiful. Sorry, probably I'm going to be going off screen
No,
a
yeah,
bit.
you could just do it. It just automatically if you bring up
Okay.
internet page that a browser, then it will just automatically take you off camera. But I'll still hear you, and it's fine. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. In the from the larger sutra, uh, it says it is the most. It's talking about the Buddha's light, Amida Buddha's light, is superbly beautiful, 100 million times more brilliant than the sun and moon. It is the brightest among the lights of all the Buddhas. It is king among the Buddhas. I'm kind of, it's a long passage, so I'm going to just take some part, but it says, it is the most exalted of lights, by far the most radiant of lights. It illuminates the innumerable dim and dark places in innumerable worlds, so that they are always splendidly bright. Among all human beings and even insects that leap or worms that crawl, there is none that does not see Amida Buddha's light. Among those that see it, there is none that does not come to possess a heart of compassion and rejoice. And then it goes on to say, Amida Buddha makes that light and name heard throughout the boundless, unlimited, countless lands of the Buddhas and the eight quarters, the zenith and the nadir. There is none among devas and human beings who does not hear and know it. So that is a great passage.
Yeah, fantastic passage. Wow, thank you for reading that. Namo Amida Butsu.
Namo
Yeah, that is.
That is really the, Amida makes the name and light be heard throughout the unlimited, infinite worlds, wherever there is, wherever there are ears to hear, right? So it's
And it's a pretty expansive.
Important.
It's a pretty expansive samsaric existence and worlds. It's pretty expansive. The scope
Yeah.
of it.
It boggles the mind.
Literally, you can't. Yeah, you literally can't actually conceive it. But if you try to, yeah, it is pretty expansive and pretty minute as well. It goes from the biggest thing you can imagine in multiple layers of worlds and things that you can imagine up to multiverse level, down to the minutest, beyond the subatomic level. The similar things are going on, what I mean? There's worlds at every,
Yeah.
And it's the three different types of, the three different categories of worlds, that kind of fit almost, if you look at it okay, there's the galactic level, the universe level, and the multiverse level, but it's just, or then there's the and the subatomic, atomic level. You can go at every, and it's just mind blowing that.
Yeah.
So for Amida's light to reach every corner of that is beyond mind blowing. that
Yeah.
is
Well, and
happening.
that is because of, Dharmakara's Bodhisattva's vow that if my light should be limited, even
Yes.
to 100 million trillions of Buddha lands, then may I not attain enlightenment. So this light, which is the light of wisdom, the Buddha's wisdom is present, is shining everywhere. That is the meaning of the passage. So, and also that we talked about, Genshin talked about how even though this light is constantly shining, my eyes are, blinded by blind passions, kleshos, and I can't see the light, but it's always embracing me. And this passage is interesting because not only does it talk about the light shining, but it also says that Amida Buddha makes beings hear the name. So even though we, being Bambu, cannot see this light, we can hear the name. So hearing the name, Mongo Myogo in the larger sutra, to hear the name, Shinjin Kangi, Naishi Ichinin. So hear the name, even and rejoice in faith, hear the name and awaken joyful faith even once, is what is written in the larger sutra. So this passage kind of has a direct, connection to that. And that is for us, our liberation. That is to hear the name, is to have all that weight taken off your shoulders. You don't have to.
Yeah.
You don't have to. Go ahead.
I've had glimpses of what that quite recently of what that feels like when you that to really have the thought and experience the thought of not only is there nothing left, not only can't I do anything of my own power, but there really isn't anything left for me to do if Amida, because of if Amida is doing it, in the way that it's taught, and if I have faith in that, then there's nothing left for me to do. I can just I can just stop trying.
No.
All this striving, all this on the conscious and unconscious level, and tension, and what if, calculating, and I can just stop all that. And I've had glimpses of that.
Yeah.
The different. I've go that's the implications of this. Like that's one of the implications of this teaching is there's really nothing left for you to do. And nothing, not only is it not effective for you to do, but there really isn't anything for you to do. Once you have faith, there's, you're still meant to deeply listen. You're still, I don't mean that there's nothing for you to do, but nothing for you to do of your self-power to try to strive toward enlightenment. And that
exactly.
is a burden. Take it. And like I said, I've experienced glimpses of that burden, of what it's like for that burden to lift. A very deep level. But
well, like we've talked about, it's a different journey for everyone, and it's a different. Some people, it's like all at once. Boom, and they just have this very definitive experience. And then for other people, it's more of a gradual, slow process. So, which type of person you may be, I don't know, but it's not this sort of we talked about, like, and again too, like if you just chase after Shinjin like a thing, like an object that you want to have and get, it gets further and further away from you. And the reason is because, like, when you like Shinran Shonin constantly is telling us, the Shinjin doesn't exist apart in a vacuum. It doesn't exist apart from the name, from the vow, from hearing the name, and from Namo Amida Butsu. So, and this is called, Shingyo, and of course, Shinran puts a lot of emphasis on Shinjin. But for Honen Chonin, these two things were kind of had to be, balanced, right? And you had to have both and so on. But Shinron kind of goes a step further and reveals how Shinjin is awakened in us through hearing the name, not just merely through saying, Namo Amida Butsu, but through truly hearing the name Namo Amida Butsu as Amida's call, So, and again, going back to that passage from the sutra, Amida makes his light and name to be heard throughout, wherever there are ears to hear it. so this is the call.
Right? Not even necessarily that ears in the way we would think of ears.
Yeah.
But it's it's almost like it's in your hands and you don't even know it. It's all, it's kind of like that.
Yeah.
I mean, this happens to me more times than I care to admit. But the whole thing of where are my glasses?
Yes.
Where am I, or where am I? Yeah. Where am I? What did I do with my glasses?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have done where I have my phone in my hand, and I typically keep my phone in my left pocket. So if I've been in a situation where I'm holding my phone in my right hand, I'll reach into my left pocket and then wonder, where's my phone?
Exactly. It's a guy thing, I think, because we do the down of keys, wallet,
right. Yeah, it's all going to be right there,
whichever pocket. And, if you're holding, but anyway, that's a loose analogy for, we already, we have it, we don't even know it. It's already, it's already here. We you know what I mean? It's already, it's already all around us. It's already just
Anyway. Well, the like we've talked about before too, it's being freely given. There's no withholding going on. There's no like Amida isn't sitting in the Pure Land saying, well, I really want Scott to have Shinjin, but not just yet. I'm not going to give him Shinjin just yet. I'm going to wait. No, the Buddha is not holding anything back. Even if you look at traditional and early Buddhism, the Buddha was Shakyamuni, historical Gautama, Buddha, was said to be, an open-handed teacher, meaning that he wasn't holding secret knowledge or holding anything back. Of course, then you get to Vajrayana, and that becomes a little complicated. But basically, the Buddha didn't hold anything back from his hearers. He gave it freely, and spoke freely. So, it's an important concept, even in early or non, Pure Land Buddhism and so on. So, there's no withholding of Shinjin or the name or the light, or it's all being. That is like Amida. That is what Amida is ultimate total compassion. Yeah, and that by definition can't rest. In Mahayana Buddhism, there's the concept of nirvana, of no abode. The Buddha bodhisattvas do not remain in nirvana. They can't, because their compassion won't allow them to just be satisfied if there's one suffering person being still remaining, Yeah. So this is what, by nature in Mahayana Buddhism, this is what the Buddha is. So, it's very important. I think, go ahead.
Times when I'm thinking about all this and deep and reflecting, that part of it, not only Amida, but all Buddhas and all Bodhisattvas and Mahasattvas, and they all are, I don't know if compelled is the right word, but just will not rest because of their ultimate compassion and ultimate wisdom. They will not rest because, with one being a suffering. And there's something, and we've touched on this at other things we've discussed in my psyche, that I think in general, with people in general, there's this thing of that somehow they're just testing me, or they're it's not like they're waiting for me to somehow get it or figure it out, but they're not. They can't, they won't do that. They'll work within my karmic causes and conditions. They'll work within because they have to do that as well. They can't defy cause and effect. They'll work within that, but they aren't saying, well, we have to wait till he realizes this or this. They're acting in whatever possible way they can within my mind to under the aegis of Amida, what I mean, working for Amida or through Amida or whatever, however that works, to do whatever they can, at all times, everywhere. do you know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah.
That's how Amida flight is working. It's just so. But I'm a bamboo, so I don't really grasp that completely. I really want to, and there's, like I said, I've had glimpses of it at times.
Well, the working of bodhisattvas and Buddhas is by definition inconceivable. It's not graspable by our minds. So, yeah, inconceivable. I do keep using that word.
Yeah, it's good. It's a good word. But I mean, unfortunately, the Princess Bride.
It does kind of.
That character has really made it. That association with the.
Yeah.
Sure,
but the literal Japanese fukashigi means cannot be grasped by our limited human minds. And so. We can't necessarily even conceive of Amida's light. That's why Shinran says the Buddha's inconceivable light. It just completely surpasses our conceptualization, our powers of conceptualization.
Beyond comprehension.
Yeah. But what we don't need to, because we have the name, Namo Amida Butsu. And hearing the name and saying the name is all that we need. We don't need to try to, like Shinran says, working becomes a problem of no working becomes a problem of working if you talk about it too much. And this is what happens,
Definitely. Yeah, that is definitely the case in my case. Put my hands up on that one. Definitely. So
yeah, it's like trying to row the boat when the great sail of other power is already flowing, and you're like, gotta get to the other side.
Can I, with for today's session, I know we did talk about some topics that we were gonna discuss, but I've been going back and listening more to some of I'm trying to catch up with listening to all of our sessions again, because that's more another way I deeply listen, is going back and listening to those, because I don't always pick up everything when we're while we're actually discussing it, and I'm able to pick it up later, because there's that there's that delayed assimilation thing I told you about with me that may or may not be related to some kind of undiagnosed specific learning difficulty or not. But or it's just a delayed assimilation. But anyway, but there's also just, because I'm a bamboo and I just, my mind is what my mind is, full of all kinds of distractions. And so going back, I listen to them now and I pick up on things that I haven't, fully discussed, or things where we went, well, at some point we'll discuss this more,
Yeah.
And one of the things I realized, a big leg of the skeptical, secular skeptical, quote unquote rational, critical thought, habituated way of thinking is this is a big one too. A big aspect of it is with any religion, once you go into that mind state, often with any religion, you begin to look at it, or any spiritual kind of thinking, you tend to start looking at it as wishful thinking, and to start looking at it as it's just a way of comforting, because life is the way life is.
Yeah.
In all its, good, the bad, the ugly, and the beautiful, but mostly because of the horrible, aspects of it, the really painful, difficult, whether on a daily basis or just, life events that are really painful, or diseases and, horrible suffering and death, and, do you know what I mean? And grief and all those things, pain in relationship, all that stuff. Like, it's a way to bring comfort. So you start to see it as it was a way that we evolved or developed to bring comfort to those things. And even the idea of death, once we became completely aware and sentient of our own dying, this is in the evolutionary mindset, which I don't necessarily agree with anymore. I don't really look at it quite the same way, evolution and all that, quite the same way as it's, kind of portrayed, but through, scientific means. But I don't totally discount it, but I just don't see it just in a totally natural, naturalistic, scientific framework of closed universe. You know what I mean? I don't see that. But anyway, there is a point where, if you're in that mindset, and I have been in that mindset, where okay, it's just a form of comfort. It's just a self-tricking form of comfort for all those things, or excuses or rationalizations for all kinds of things.
Yeah.
And also the comfort about death, and the comfort of things go on, both of loved ones or yourself, that you still go on somehow. And that it's just a wishful thinking. Like, it's like any religion kind of becomes that way of thinking. And, and so when I'm in that mindset, I used to somewhat try to look for other ways to deal with it, accepting those things in a different way, and looking at it differently, and, but eventually couldn't. Eventually I when I got to the phase of with that sort of rationalist, secularist, skeptical mindset, where I got into philosophical pessimism and absurdism, you don't have that luxury anymore of being able to convince yourself, well, there's another way within this naturalistic, closed universe of materialist universe to somehow, comfort yourself. There isn't. Once you get too far, once you take it as far as it can go, you just are like, okay, we're screwed, and there's no unscrewing it, So, but anyway, there's a point where I thought, where I had that thinking, it was all wishful thinking, and, and I did, wonder the same thing about Buddhism in general. Same thoughts. I gave it much more of a pass, as I've said. I didn't completely look at Buddhism quite that same way as I looked at other religions. When I look at this wishful thinking, or this comfort thinking kind of view of religion, I didn't have totally the same, you know what I mean? Because I was like, there's things about Buddhism I just couldn't rule out because of the connection of consciousness, reality, and, and that's what Buddhism is about, is consciousness, and how that, it's real realm, real reality, but it's based on, it's somehow, anyway. So I could never really completely rule it, but I was still there on that. And when you look at Amida Buddhism, when you look at Jodo Shinshu Buddhism, Pure Land Buddhism in general, but particularly Jodo Shinshu, it kind of can be looked at almost as the ultimate wishful thinking. I have to admit too that there's still that creeping thought in the background about that, because it's not only, you don't really have to do anything either. So it's not only is it the ultimate wishful thinking, like about what your life will be after this life, but it's also lets you off the hook, kind of, in a way that other religions don't. Other religions,
require you to, to live a purely moral life, or do some prayer 7 times a day, or
we're still supposed to, as we talked about, live by the principles of humanity, I think is this phrase that Shinran borrowed. We're still we should still try to live morally, and try to live by what the Buddhist teachings teach about certain behaviors and certain ways of living, that you just try not to do them, because we don't take poison just because we have the antidote, but we don't, it's not like a requirement that we do those. It's not like we're meant to. It is kind of in the sense where we're meant to try to do that, but it's not in the same way as other, do you see what I mean, religion. So it lets you off the hook.
It's not a criteria or a requirement to be born in the Pure Land.
Saved. It's not a requirement for salvation.
With regard to our birth in the Pure Land, the only thing that is efficacious, the true, Shinran Chunin says the true cause is Shinjin, right? And of course, where Shinjin comes from. So
let me just so
yes, please.
So there's that, so the only, so it's not, you're not even required, unless you have the hook, in terms of that moral behavior is not required in order to be saved by Amida. It's not required. As long as you faith arises and you're saying the name and you're listening deeply and you're wishing to go to his land and you trust to Amida, etc., you will be born in his land. There's no requirement of morality. So let you off the hook, and it gives you like the ultimate. It's like the ultimate thing you can become. Like, it's not just a heaven. You're not just going to heaven or 7, different layers of heavens, or different better mind states, or or paradises, or it gives you the ultimate thing you can become, a Buddha, and there is that question in my mind going, so is this kind of seems like the ultimate too good to be true, the ultimate wishful thinking, ultimate too good to be true, the ultimate. So I have to, and that's in there. It's a sneaking thing, but it's in there. It's in the background. But that's a leg of that. That's a part of that habituated mindset, because of in the past I've really gone into that kind of thinking, and it's there. It's there, and I'm trying to bring everything out into the light. I know Amida sees it, and Amida's light's already shining on it, and it's, but I feel like I have to, like Renyu says, up, whatever it is, talk about it. And I've attempted to talk about these things in the past in other contexts, in other sanghas and other email groups and things, but the response wasn't always encouraging.
Well,
really
part
pursue
of that
kinds of thought.
Part of that could be because your shovel hit a rock, so to speak, in the sense of, other people may well have struggle with the same doubts. And
exactly. I thought
sometimes people
that
don't like to have
reminded.
someone digging around in their
Yes, because it reminds them of their own things that are in the lurking in the background. I've had that thought a lot about when I look back at the response I've gotten. I said, is part of it because
Mm.
they're not, it's not like they're offended or taken personal, but underneath it makes them feel
Yeah.
insecure about their own
Yeah,
question,
yeah.
or they
I
just
think so.
they fear that thought will come into their own mind.
Yeah, yeah.
Like if you're still fearing that, whether it's on a conscious or a subconscious level, or some kind of anxiety that you have,
Mm.
is that Shinjin? Is that really Shinjin? If you're avoiding,
Yeah, exactly.
if you're offended, or if you have anxiety about somebody else's question, or you just don't want to deal with it, or
Mm.
that really Shinjin. But that's a whole nother story. But anyway,
Yeah.
so I'm able to talk about it now for the this
Mm.
like they say, when the right causes and conditions come together, you find the right
Mm.
teacher to talk
Yeah.
with and circumstances to do it. And so I'm doing it, and this is one of them. I'm trying to illuminate all the dark corners, even though Amita's already illuminated it.
Yeah.
I feel like I have to say and bring it
Yeah.
up and discuss it. So
Well, it's a great question. It's also a question that I have had many, many times. I
I
have
see
asked
it
myself,
as
yeah, and it's I think it's even, it's a question that, like many things in religion, is um, subjective. So there is no answer other than the one that you decide on, in some sense. And but I would say a couple thoughts that came up. So as you were expressing that question is, first of all, if you go back to the very basics of Buddhism, right? It's Shakyamuni said, everything that I teach is about suffering and the fear of suffering.
Yeah.
And so there's suffering. That is the problem, right? This world we live in has so much suffering everywhere you look, if your eyes are open to it. And the cure to that is not necessarily drink this medicine or take this pill, not that those aren't good. Those are good things, of course. I mean, we can obviously, if you have some pain and there's a medicine that cures it, that's great, and the Buddha encourages us to do so, but at an existential level, there is what the Buddha called suffering, not so much in the sense of like mere physical or even mental pain, but dukkha, of deep unsatisfaction, the deeply unsatisfactory nature of existence that we sense at a level below, kind of beyond the mere superficial,
Yes. Deep and dynamic. Like it's a dynamic unsatisfactory. It's like active.
Yeah.
Yeah, you sense underlyingly about everything everywhere. Yeah. Consciously. Yeah. Anyway.
And of course that arises from craving, and of course the all of that teaching, which I won't get into details. But so the purpose of the Buddhist teaching is to get rid of that suffering, to enable us to resolve the problem of birth and death, of existence itself. And that is what enlightenment, in enlightenment, that's an English word, has a lot of connotations that don't necessarily communicate what is going on. I mean, awakening is another good word that is sometimes used, but Bodhi, and someone who realizes Bodhi is a Buddha, right? So the Buddha is an awakened one. And so that is a little bit different from, say, some other religions where like the only goal is to get into heaven, or there's a last judgment and you're either going to be amongst the sheep or amongst the goats. And it's an important distinction, I think, to make, because we can get lost in the weeds of speculations and theories and lose sight of the true fundamentals of Buddhism, of the Buddha's teaching. And I think when we do that, it becomes more easier to fall into these ways of thinking, like, is this all just wishful thinking, And so I think that's one thing we could maybe keep in mind, is asking, what is the purpose of Buddhism to begin with? What is the goal of Buddhism? The goal is, to become an awakened Buddha, right? And then lead others to that same awakening. Of course, in Mahayana, it's not just a goal that we have for ourselves, but, by definition. And in Pure Land Buddhism, specifically in Jodo Shinshu, Shinran doesn't say that we go to the Pure Land and then we just get to relax and enjoy the shade. No. Shinran says that we return to this world as part of Amida, of the working of compassion. We join, Team Amida, if you want to say, we actually return
the merit transference of going forth for birth, and then and also the merit transference. And part of the merit transference is to return to save, right, to help save others, to help others, to come to your land.
And so people in the Pure Land tradition, of course, there were people who critiqued it on this ground. Well, you Pure Land aspirants, you just want to go and enjoy the gold pavilions and
that's not
Well, we're here.
We're here to work.
People, we're here doing the hard work. Really becoming, and there were people who said, like, who was it? Dogen Zenji.
Yeah.
Who Shinran met, by the way. He met Shinran. In fact, Shinran gave Dogen a ninju as a gift, and Dogen gave Shinran a Zen whisk, fly whisk.
Oh, wow, cool. I never heard that. That's very cool.
Yeah, and there's actually a statue at a temple in Tokyo that is of Shinran sitting with that whisk. Which is very unusual.
I've seen an image, I think, of either that statue or a painting where it has the whisk, and I wondered, because that's not
a Pure Land. It's not a Pure Land tradition.
And I'm like, what? I wonder what you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If something that somehow Anyway, I always wondered about that. So that's you've answered a question that I didn't even know I had.
Well, no, but Dogen also had some very pungent words about Pure Land followers. He said famously that the Nimbutsu was like frogs croaking in a pond. Basically saying it's it isn't anything.
That's very Dogen.
Now, was that a critique, or was there some deeper? Was it more of a koan? Was he talking about
kind of skill and means?
Yeah.
That he was...
My response to that would be a frog in a pond knows to croak when the moon shines. So, in a sense,
you nailed that call.
I kind of
you flipped it. You would like that, I think. He would.
Yeah, well, So what exactly Dogen meant by that, and even if that's an authentic
That's
thing
an
of
well,
Dogen.
that's excellent. That's fantastic. Your answer to that
Well, that
question.
would be my reply. I mean,
Yeah,
and then Dogen being a Zen master, he must have
yeah,
known that the croaking of frogs is
yeah.
not separate from the one true enlightenment. So I don't even know if he is
Interesting.
being a critic of Pure Land. I think he
Yeah.
might be saying, well, the true meaning of the Nimbutsu is really Zen, which of course we don't teach, but
Hmm.
anyway, it's an interesting encounter between,
It's all those
uh,
subtleties. It's all those nuances that those
yeah,
masters
yeah, yeah.
communicate and
Yeah,
taught.
and I am not an authority by any means on Dogen's teaching. I do have, respect for him, of course, as a great master of Japanese Buddhism. And I, I have actually visited his grave is actually in Kyoto. It's just a very simple. It's like in the middle. It's on a street in the middle of the city, basically. And so it's just surrounded by shops and buildings, and it's just there it is, very small and unassuming. Um,
Nice.
so
So
I
yeah,
mentioned that. I mentioned Dogen's, critique of the Pure Land to say that there were, other masters in the path of sages tradition who were critical of Pure Land Buddhism, and one of the big things is that you know we don't know a lot about how Pure Land Buddhism um, originated or what were the origins of it or the evolution. I mean, that goes for Mahayana a lot generally, but um, you know, looking at the early Pure Land texts, it may have come from a sense that people had where there's no Buddha in this world, so we should try to, be born in a world where there is a Buddha, right? So we can, continue to be taught and so on. So that may have been, part of the just from a purely, philosophy of religion, history, phenomenological standpoint, that may have had something to do with the origin of Pure Land Buddhism, right? But the real question that I ask is, Pure Land Buddhism became such a um, widespread, widely accepted tradition within Buddhism. And in Buddhism, it's not like the sutras, like if you look at the larger sutra, the Pure Land Sutras, um, those weren't like just added by somebody who had nothing else to do, and he was like, okay, I'm going to stick these in the canon. The way the sutras were created and accepted, they had to be agreed upon. They had to be accepted by the Buddhist community.
yep, yep.
And so the fact that these sutras were accepted and agreed on as being authentic in the canon is, to me, significant. I mean, that shows that you had enlightened Buddhist masters who recognize these sutras for what they were, as an authentic, the word of the Buddha, the teaching of Shakyamuni Buddha. Um, so why am I bringing that up? I'm saying that the doubts about, is the Pure Land wishful thinking, for example. That's obviously going to be something that we as modern people are going to have to deal with, because we live in a very skeptical age. People even in Japan, I mean, it's
Yeah,
a lot of people have left Jodo Shinshu and so on because they don't, I don't believe in the Pure Land. I don't believe in that stuff. They're not religious. They don't have that worldview, which is unfortunate. But and also, and we have discussed this before, things, um, if you're talking, for example, about the existence of the Pure Land, right? It's one thing to say that it exists, which it does, but it's also another to kind of go deeper and ask in what way or how does it exist, and what is the meaning of the Pure Land, and what is the meaning of enlightenment and birth into Pure Land, and so on. And of course, many people in Jodo Shinshu have thought and written and talked about these topics, and Kobai Sensei, of course, is one of them. But again, it does go back to the basics of Buddhism, and also the fact that in Shakyamuni always kind of invited people to try, he always gave everyone, whoever it was, some practice, some teaching that was to their benefit, right? And Buddhism, the Dharma is vast. I mean, it's a huge, boundless thing, and you can't just swallow it all at once, And so
84,000 Dharma doors.
Exactly. Yeah.
With teachings, 84,000 practices. Anyway, yeah.
Yeah. And what I think Bhikkhu Bodhi, who is a Theravada monk, he is actually American, but he said is that with the Buddha's teaching, you start to look at, like, when the Buddha talks about things like the relations between people, or social things, or he talks about if you do this kind of thing, then this kind of result will follow. And then what happens is, as we examine our lives, we realize, oh yeah, that's exactly right. Everything the Buddha says is exactly what life is.
Happens in so many contexts, so many ways.
Yeah.
Talked about that with you, and in videos I've done, and reflected on that a lot. It's different no matter what thing I seem to look at life through the lens of, whatever philosophy or science or way of looking at things or views, whatever. Somehow it always goes to, oh yeah, that's what Buddhism teaches, and much better. Yeah. Might as well.
Yeah. And so, that being the case, what happens is we start to form confidence in the Buddha as a teacher and guide, right? And that is, the sort of awakening of faith or confidence. The word faith is an English word that has connotations that for some people are problematic. But the original word in Buddhism means to have reliance or confidence in, because of that person's, virtue, and because of that person's, teaching is coherent and true, right? And then that is how faith awakens. So, I think that there is a leap between that early Buddhism and Pure Land Buddhism, and it's a leap that not everyone is able to make, at least in this life, and that's why a lot of people who become Buddhists in the West become Theravada, Buddhists, for example, or Vajrayana Tibetan Buddhism is very popular now, so that is another thing that. Yeah. And yeah, and it is, it is a leap. Some Western Buddhists would look at Jodo Shinshu and say, well, how is that even Buddhism? It looks just like Christianity. You're just trying to, Amida, save me and take me to the Pure Land. It's like, praying to Jesus. How is that any different? Would be a typical, response. To which I would say that is a superficial understanding of Pure Land Buddhism based on you're just looking at it and you're just seeing similarities that you think are similarities because you haven't studied it. And then you're just making assumptions based on that. So if you really want to get to know what the Nimbutsu is about and what Pure Land Buddhism is, you really have to go beyond those initial, you have to go deeper, right? Like you are doing. And
but I say to people when there is a sincere question to me about it, or the question or something arises about, I just say, I don't get into comparative religion conversations or debates. I just say, yeah, it's totally different than any, when you really learn about it and study it and begin to practice what we do actually, practice is listening and things. You see, it's totally different than any other religion that you have even heard of, and to some extent different than other. There is a difference from other forms of Buddhism, although there's a lot. Although it is the ultimately it's the ultimate Buddhism actually, but on the surface it looks different. That's what I say to them too. Like on the surface, this looks different than Buddhism, but when you really, saying it's actually the ultimate Buddhism. It's the ultimate goal. It's the ultimate teaching. It's the ultimate desire of every Buddha everywhere. It's the ultimate expression of the awakened wisdom and compassion. But anyway, so I often say that it's totally different than any. You could could do these comparisons, but it's not going to be helpful. So I don't really engage in that when I discuss it. Especially other
well, and there are parallels because human beings, we're all the same basically. So we have,
but it's right. Super.
But it's the assumption is kind of a misguided one, and it's based on is basically ignorance of the tradition, right? Now but it's a hard question, and it's something that I have questions and had doubts about. I think a lot of people do. I mean, it's not a there's a lot of things that it relates to, like, is there a life after death? It's like a question that you ask, and some people believe no.
Just put it in perspective, okay? Just by analogy, my confidence in Buddhism is like as far as I can see right now. This doubt, this thing in the back of my mind is maybe in this room. From compared to my confidence in the teachings. Just to put it in perspective, but that room is right here. The room I'm in is right here, where the rest of it I can't necessarily even see how, I can't. Do you see what I'm saying? It's very immediate. So
you can't see the forest for the trees, kind of.
Sometimes when that habituated thinking, the monkeys, the monkeys start throwing things around, and that gets thrown in front of me. Look at this. Then it's the stumble. It trips you up. So that's one thing I want to say about it. Another thing I want to say is flip side. Okay, the flip side of going back to that mindset of, if I get that habituated mindset of the secular, skeptical, cynical, skeptical. Let's just start. It started out as secular, scientific, skeptical, rational, critical thought. But because I'm a true seeker, because I'm a I do have a certain, I'm a bamboo, but I do have certain capacities for perception and to be able to take my experience in, and helped along a lot by Amida, I think, really super helped along a lot. I've looking back, but anyway, so since I do that, I'm a true seeker. I'll take things as far as they will go. I won't just, okay, yeah, great. Naturalistic, closed universe, materialistic universe, okay. Scientific framework for seeing things, okay. Rational thought, good. No, I won't stop there. I will take this as far as it will go. And where that went, and in my experience in life, where that ultimately leads to, in my experience and in my life and in my mind, is philosophical pessimism, absurdism, existential absurdism, and nihilism. There's no place that it ends up. There's no other place, and it's one of the worst mind states when I've gone there. However briefly I might go back. It's become less and less frequent in this past year that I've visited. That town.
Good. Well, that means the medicine is working, right?
Exactly. That's the only place for it to go. And it's horrible. And it is the most intolerable mind state that I can remember or conceive or so it's like, well, what does that give me? It gives me more suffering and pain. It enhances the suffering. It increases the suffering. Do you know what I mean? It compounds the suffering. It multiplies the suffering in my mind, internally, emotionally. Whereas Buddhism, it's the opposite. It relieves the suffering. It relieves the suffering on different levels and gradually. And so and it's the ultimate release. It's the ultimate release, the ultimate being the ultimate cessation of that suffering. So it's kind of like, oh yeah, let's weigh this up. Which one am I going to choose? Which it's kind of a no-brainer. Which way I'm going to go, and then that becomes a very positive. So one completely, totally exacerbates, worsens, deepens, and multiplies and compounds suffering. The other continuously relieves it, and always is relieving it, and ultimately will completely, so Amida Buddhism will be, Amida will bring you to Pure Land because you become a Buddha, and it's no more. You have no more suffering. None of that stuff. So it's like, well, it's kind of a no-brainer. Which way do I want to go?
But it would be simple if you had no brain, right?
Yeah. Exactly. But then
the brain is the problem.
I'd be in a different realm. If I had if I didn't have human consciousness, I'd be in a different, if I had a lower than human consciousness, I'd be in non-sentience, then I wouldn't. But
well, that is why, I mean, it is our brains that are the problem, right? Even if you rationalize and set it out, it's the monkeys, right? The monkey mind will still, but, and I think too, it is difficult, and I think this is why some people who were once Shin Buddhists have left, to be frank, in the West and or in European and America and so on, is because there isn't a community really of seeing other people, and not just one person, but many people, gathering in a social setting or space, who sincerely believe in Jodo Shinshu, and that in itself is something that really is impressive and kind of can encourage you and make you look at this isn't just something that people talk about on the internet. It's actually a real religion that people have lived and believed in, investigated all their lives.
Yeah.
And we're talking like, in my case, for example, I've been to temples where you had, there's this one lady a temple in Nara. Actually, it's called Jokyoji Temple. It's actually I'm a friend with the Jushoku, the resident priest there, and he was actually the one who gave me the approval, because you need a priest's approval to enroll in the Chuo Bukkyo Gakuin.
Mm-hmm.
And he was the one who gave me that approval. But I have visited that temple a few times, and there's this lady there who is the daughter of this teacher of Shin Buddhism who passed away, quite some time ago. And she is quite in her, she's quite elderly. But you see these people like her, and many, many others gathering, for a, service, memorial service or Buddha service. And it really does give you that sense of being like, oh, wow, I'm actually here surrounded by people who are, going to the Pure Land, and it does give you that sense of, this is not just a Wikipedia page. It's, an actual living tradition of Buddhism, of the Buddhist religion that is real and goes beyond, arguing on the internet.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a very point. That is part of the difficulties of our modern age in Mappo, is that we don't, and most of us don't really have that opportunity to be surrounded by people like that. I'm sure the experience of all of this is so different when you have that. It was, even though, whatever my experience was with the true Shin Buddhist online group, whatever it was with G online Sangha, there's still there's still something in that gives more strength than just trying to, be out there kind of on your own and doing it. Even if at least have that, which is why I'm definitely going to pursue, probably with one of the Hangguan-ji-ha temples that actually does have an online Sangha. I'm going to definitely pursue that, because at least there's, you're going to Dharma talks, there's a bunch of other people there on the screen, and do you know what I mean? And there's it at least gives you that, and that did make a difference when I was doing that with that part of it, for whatever difficulties there were, with me within that Sangha. That part of it is a good thing, and so I definitely am going to pursue that with a Hangguan-ji-ha temple.
It's a good thing.
I'm definitely looking for a teacher that is, very orthodox in the teaching, in what the, transmitting the Dharma as it's was given by Shinran Shonin, Renya Shonin, etc. So, but still, probably will be within the context broader, of Hangguan-ji-ha, somewhere like the Oregon Buddhist Temple or something. So
and it's I think it is helpful. The spiritual friendship, on the path is hugely important in Buddhism. It's certainly not a path that we walk alone, right?
No.
And
definitely not. You can't. I think it's impossible to. I can't see how you could really do it as a do-it-yourself religion, or Dharma. I just keep path. I can't see. can't see it because you can't, just the teachings themselves preclude that as a, although Amida can save anyone, you somehow still need to, even if it's a book that's your teacher, it's still the other person that wrote that and that you're interacting with. And even if it's, I can't see someone just stopping there. You're going to try to contact somebody. You're going to try to reach out to somebody, and it's, part of those 5 aspects of birth in Pure Land that Renyo talked about. I can't see Jodo Shinshu without that interaction with them. I can't.
Yeah.
But one other thing I wanted to say too, the thought that came up, we're talking about suffering, which is the key thing that you got to come back to. Suffering and the cessation of suffering. That is what it's all about. Buddhism is about. And the teachings that Shakyamuni revealed or gave of all the worlds of samsara, there's some pretty amazing worlds that are, so even some, even just even the God realms within the desire, God realms in the Kamaloka, they're pretty great places, but you're not going to have a proclivity to go after the Dharma if you're in them. You're not going to, why would I go over to the things just appear for me, and my whole life is an English garden party, why do I, and most of them don't really think about that. They live for how, countless incredible amounts of time. They don't really think about death. They're constantly in a very young, beautiful body, and look beautiful, and do you know what I mean? And but then when it does come, when those thoughts of death, when it gets through them, and they hear a teaching, or they are reminded, they see God dying, it's horrible. It's horrible, the horrible death. So there's always this, no matter how good it is, there's like the Buddha is like, if you're going to try to solve it in samsara, sorry, no matter where you go, there's going to be this horrible, there's going to be suffering, even like in the higher, in the Rupaloka and Arupaloka, formless, the form realm, the higher forms realm, eventually that ends. You run out. Form of suffering there. It's not like we conceive suffering, but and then you look at the other
impermanence, right, is the other side of suffering, right? So it doesn't last. Impermanence.
Exactly, impermanence. Ultimately, it's impermanent. You can't escape it. And then it's obvious in the lower realms that it's suffering that you can't do much about other than the human. That's why it's good to precious birth as a human. It's you're in the Goldilocks zone. You're just right where you got enough suffering and enough joy. You're in the exoplanet, zone for being able to go, okay, I got to do something about this. I can see my suffering. It's not so bad. I mean, obviously for some people that it is so bad that they can't think about, their suffering is so bad. But anyway, but then even within human realms, right? The different human realms, the other continents, the quote unquote continents, quarters, of the Saha world, where it talks about the other types of human beings. That there's the northern continent where they have it pretty good, man. They are, it's like hippie commune, baby, like naturalistic, live 1,000 years. They have they live the precepts perfectly, just naturally by their that's just how they are they can't do anything else. They just live it perfectly. That's how their consciousness is. There's no idea of ownership, and do you know what I mean? their food grows on trees just as they need it. The boughs of trees are perfect for them to sleep in. When they die, when they give birth, there's no suffering in birth. It happens easily. When they die, there's no suffering. They die, and there's no dharma.
Right.
Dharma.
So there's no escape from.
Yeah, they still die. It might be free of like any kind of the pain of death, and you're kind of like, yeah, okay, I'm dying. Okay, I'm dead. I'm dying, but you're still dying. And what realm are you going? What ran out? What good karma? How much good karma ran out for you to have been born there? And then, and that, how is it? Where are you going to be born next? So no matter what it is, there you are. No matter where in samsara you are, there's no escape from it. How good it is, no matter how good it is, there's still suffering.
Yeah,
still going to be back into it for another round somewhere else, and likely in a lower realm. Mostly they go down. That's what he said. Is taught that most beings go downward, into the lower realms. It's rare to be, in human and above. But,
yeah. Well, yeah, the truth of impermanence, right, is huge, major. I mean, super important in Buddhism.
Yeah,
and that reminds me of when Shinran Choni was going to be ordained. He Tokudo, when he was going to, he received Tokudo at Shorin-in, which is a branch temple of, Tendai in Kyoto. And the priest came to, his house to perform the ceremony. And Shinran Choni, he was only 9 years old at the time, so he was just, a little boy. They wanted to put off the ceremony for the following day. But Shinran wouldn't. Shinran said, "No, I want to do it tonight." And he said, he basically said a poem. Cherry blossoms that are on the bough may fall before the morning comes. So even at the age of 9, Shinran Shonin was that acutely aware of the truth of impermanence.
Hello, sorry about that. Incoming call. My iPad is hooked up to that. So anyway, we're wrapping it up anyway. I just have to
Anyway, so so impermanence is very much kind of the catalyst of enlightenment, in the sense that it is what motivates. It's what motivated Shakyamuni to seek enlightenment. So again, these are great questions, and I think that there is a lot to be said about them, but I don't think they can just be answered.
No,
in an individual. It's a process of, it's a journey of being on the path, and over time it may take it may take weeks or months or years. I mean, and it's a process of engaging with, like what you're doing, reading Kogyo Shinsho. That is, a great idea, in my opinion. Even a little bit is
go to the magnum opus. That's the source.
Yes, go to the source.
But I get that now. I get that I really get that now. In the past, I really was hoping, you want the quick fix, don't you? Even though doesn't work that way. Even though somewhere within you and within the teaching, you can see it doesn't work that way. But you want that. Yes, you want that quick. Of course we do. We're bummed. We want the quick fix. We want the easy fix. But it's not. You gotta, I mean, this is the easy path, but this is the, but yeah, you have to, yeah, I get that now, that it's a process of just
Hmm.
keep bringing it up, speak up, bring it
Yeah.
up, discuss it.
And
I can see how it
listen,
already weakens. Yeah, and listen, speak up.
Tomon, deep listening to the Dharma.
Yeah.
That's the Jodo Shinshu life, the
And I
way
can
of
see
the
now
way
that
of
these things have changed just in this year of actually doing it this way. I feel like I'm doing it the textbook way, the textbook, like
mm,
textbook Jodo Shinshu, teachings now, the way they were meant to be
mm,
done and how they would be played out if we were in a
mm,
physical sangha, somewhere. And,
yeah.
like I feel like I'm actually doing the path now, whereas
Mm,
previously I was doing partially the
yeah.
path, which had to happen. It's all, again, it's a
Mm,
process. I think I had to do what I had to do,
yeah.
and lead things had to ripen, and and all of that. But now I feel like I'm really fully doing
Mm,
the teaching as it's taught by Shinran Shonen, Renya Shonen, and the
mm,
Dhamma. So, which,
good.
and so I can see how it works now.
Yeah.
Like, really quite. I kind of thought, yeah, maybe I see how that, but now I feel like I know I don't know it all, but I just have a
Mm,
much better idea of kind of how it. I can't,
yeah.
obviously it's all the way Amida works and all of that, but at
Mm,
least the
mm,
teachings, and I can see the
mm,
progress, the process now
mm.
unfold in a way. So anyway,
Yeah. It's
I,
good. I think you've made. I mean, even since comparing when we started talking at first, I think you've come a long way. Now, I did want to bring up two things really quick. I do have, I actually prepared some materials on the topic of, because I think you asked about the no
that's
precepts.
what I said.
Yeah,
Yeah, at the beginning, I know we talked
yeah,
about talking about the
yeah,
lack of, how there's no precepts, but yet we're
yeah,
still supposed to not take the
right,
poison.
yeah,
Yeah, and we're meant to live by the principle of humanity, and all those kinds of
yeah. And so
how
let's,
world morally,
mm,
politically, socially, as
right,
duty, all those things. Yeah, I know we talked about that, but yeah, I just was like, oh, I better talk about this question because it's
yeah.
hadn't
And
been
that's
a
good. I mean, I think my personal ideal for these talks we have is that the priority ought to be whatever is like pressing or on your mind. Like if there's something to talk about, let's go with that. But I was going to say that I started sort of studying the concept of no precepts in Shinron's writings, and it led me on this very interesting to these stories that I do eventually want to share with you. And there are actually connections like spanning the entirety of Buddhist, history, basically. And it does bring us to another thing that is deeply very, very relevant to Jodo Shinshu, which is the concept of rootless faith. And maybe you have heard that term.
I think I have, yeah.
Or possibly not, because it's not very common in Shodomon schools of Buddhism.
Right.
But in Shinshu, it's a very important concept, and um, there are some great stories that illustrate, and even in Kyogyo Shinshu, it's in Kyogyo Shinsho. So, yeah, I'm kind of looking forward to having that discussion. And then the second thing I wanted to mention is I am next weekend. I'm meeting. I'm going to Kobai Sensei's lecture on Tanisho at Tsukiji Honganji, and I probably will join the. Well, I am planning to join the after party. And so, if you have any questions that we haven't discussed that you would like me to consult Kobai Sensei on, just send me a message and I
Okay.
will try to ask him. Anything related to, his book or Shinshu teaching that is some doubt or question you have would be a great,
Okay.
thing to ask.
Well, there'll be
And
one, I'll try to remember. There's ones where we've said this is maybe something we need to take to Kobai Sensei. I'll try to remember some of those. And also, I right off the bat, I'm already thinking bang, bang, bang. I thought of 2 or 3.
Great.
For us to discuss, it would probably wind up being, I'll take this to Kobai Sensei. Do you know what I mean? Kobai Sensei. But I also, if you can clarify, just to make sure, can you definitely, about me reading his books aloud on my YouTube channel, if that's
okay. I will ask him.
I think,
I don't think
the translation. I think he's using Google Translate something to with it but I think overall it sounded like he was going, give me a thumbs up, let me know how that goes, but didn't really
I'll confirm.
Really read between the Google to get that, so, or whatever platform he's using, I don't know,
right
might probably is a better one than Google Translate, but I wasn't, it wasn't a straightforward, so I did, I'm pretty sure he's saying, cool, I'm fine with that, but if you could just make sure that he's okay with me doing that, reading that, and literally what I'm going to doing is reading. I'm not going to comment on it. I'm just going to be reading it as part of my deep listening, and to put it in audio format so that others can benefit from
that. Would be great, I think. Because there isn't any audio book of it, so
just literally reading it. As far as I know, there's an audio format, so that's why I wanted so and I was planning on doing that with other books as well. I have to contact the other publishers for that to say, is this okay to do, but anyway, of Shinron's works and Renyo's works, I was, from these particular translations I was going to contact them eventually, but I figured, I go right to Kobai Sensei. I'll start with the Kobai Sensei's works.
I will make sure. I'll make sure I ask him, and I'm sure there won't be any problem at all. But so I will ask that as well. Now, next weekend, I may have something on Sunday as well, so we might have to skip next week and then meet again on the week after. And if that is the case, then I will sort of put together Kobai Sensei's answers and prepare that, and then we can discuss that in a couple weeks. So,
and what's good is recently, I think Mead has worked, because recently 2 other some of my former Dharma brothers in another Sangha, refugees, as it were, refugees have recently washed up on the shores near my part of Samsara, the Saha world.
Okay. And maybe you can be a guide to them now.
Through my channel, they comment. I was like, oh, they know I'm, so I've actually this weekend spoken with both of them on video, just on through Messenger. I actually spoke with them and said, hey, good to be in touch, and I'm glad you found my channel again, and and all that. So we're going to start to do some Dharma talks, and I'm going to get through all the stuff with my channel again, like I used to do. A new kind of contact. So so it's good. I have some more Sangha contact, I feel like, now, which is
good.
Very good. That was very, it's,
Well, the important thing is
they had similar experiences to me.
Okay.
If not just in Amita G, but things in
could you just
online.
say what you just said? Just could you repeat that last couple seconds?
They've had similar experience. Sorry, another phone call coming. I need to go, but
okay.
But anyway, I just wanted to tell you that's happening, and
that's
at some point,
wonderful.
You to them and they to you, and maybe have another Dharma talk with all 3 of us, or all 4. I mean, all 4 of us, or whatever. at some point.
Yeah, that would be great. I would be happy to for that opportunity. So yeah.
They're great. Anyway, all right. They're both here in the UK.
All right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank
Yeah.
you,
Thanks
Scott.
so much. Namo Amida
All right.
Butsu.
Namo Amida Butsu.
Yeah. Take care. All the best.
Bye.
See you. Talk to you in 2 weeks.
All right. Take care.